Back in 2001, a gruesome murder took place in Hanover, New Hampshire, of Dartmouth professors Half and Suzanne Zantop. Now, this began an unpredictable writing relationship between Irene Kakadas, a professor of German studies who saw Zantops as her mentors, and a Valley News reporter, Steve Gordon, who later started Hand to Heart, which is a massage therapy group that provides services to terminally ill patients. Steve covered the murder and a year later provided Irene with assistance to telling the personal story of the Zantops as loving, caring individuals for the Valley News.
And something just clicked. We started talking back and forth about subjects that I'd never really been able to talk to anybody about in a very straightforward way. So at some point in that first long conversation, we thought, well, maybe there's something to write here. And I think at that point, we weren't sure if one of us would be writing, both of us would be writing, or we'd be writing together. And we decided, because I was leaving town, indeed I was leaving the country, as I often do, so we decided to just email back and forth and find out what topics we were interested in discussing. But the process ended up being so profound of trying out ideas with each other, not having any barriers to what we said, really putting what we were thinking or feeling out there without fear of the other person thinking we were horrible. Or we found that this process itself freed us up to think about mortality in completely new ways. And that was very liberating for both of us. And it occurred to us that maybe using the way we had gone back and forth as the book itself might help other people figure out how they could have similarly liberating conversations about mortality. On the one hand, we were sharing information about things that were happening to us in the moment. So as my brother-in-law or my mother-in-law or my father became more ill, or whatever their current health crisis was, I was often writing about that to Steve. He, in the meantime, was often writing to me about some of his clients from Hand to Heart, and those were people who often were very close to their own deaths, and sometimes he would experience one of those deaths, so he would write to me about the actual loss. So there was a certain trading of stories, but there was also a testing out of questions. Like, at one point he asked me, well, do you think that death is unfair? Is it unjust? And I had a pretty strong reaction to that. And we went back and forth in a more conversational way, you could call it, testing out ideas. For example, I brought up the idea that some deaths seem unfair because they seem unnecessary when we think about children who die from starvation, or all kinds of individuals of any age who die in wars. And so I raised that issue with him, and then he came back at me. And as we went back and forth on issues, sometimes we found ourselves changing our minds. And I asked myself out loud to my co-writer at one point, what would it mean if we could think of accepting death as an enhancement of life, not a giving up on life? What would it mean if we realized we would die? What kinds of decisions could we make? What kinds of actions might we take if we just faced that full on? Our claim is that there aren't right answers. There are just the answers that make sense to you. And we hope that by reading how we lived that with each other for 4 years, by the way, other people would feel encouraged to try to do the same with the people they trust and love.
Irene and Steve's book, Let's Talk About Death, is available through Amazon.com in both hard and electronic versions. Also, Irene is a great supporter of local bookstores, so she encourages you to go into yours and ask for it. Now, if they don't have it there, they'll be happy to order a copy for you.